Son Gohan. How did it come to this? That the latest character development he's gotten from Akira Toriyama came in the form of a goofy looking transformation that's a blatant rehash of his original Super Saiyan 2 form. From being heralded as the new protagonist of Dragon Ball to only being included in Superhero as a favor to a movie producer, when did it become blatantly clear that Akira Toriyama was just done with him as a character? Many would say when he became a completely useless nerd in Resurrection F, others would say it's when he jobbed in record time during Battle of Gods. As for me, I would go even earlier, back to the serialization of the original manga. But first, as I awkwardly pretend to walk down my green screen, could you please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as that would be greatly appreciated. So as I was saying, I believe that the downfall of Gohan's character can be pinpointed to the cusp of what many people claim to be his greatest moment. I believe that Gohan's first character assassination at the hands of Akira Toriyama took place during the Cell Games. Now, we all know the Cell Games. It began with a clash of the Titans, Cell versus Hercule. Unfortunately, Cell got a lucky hit on the GOAT, and so Goku had to step in. Now, he gave it his all and pulled out all the stops against this perfect abomination, but his best wasn't good enough, and in a first for his character, Goku put his fists down and gave up, leading Gohan to take his place to fight against Cell. Right after some good sportsmanship from Goku, that definitely won't cost him his life. It was Gohan's turn to step up. His entire character arc, from when he was introduced as a mere infant, was leading up to this moment. But then he said something strange. Just as the fate of the world rested on his shoulders, Gohan decided to come out as a pacifist? Much to the shock of his father. Now, to be fair to Gohan, he did indeed fight against Cell initially, but his heart just wasn't in it, which led to he and the rest of the Z fighters to be tortured by Cell and his newborn babies respectively. Now, this scene, these lines from Gohan have always been somewhat controversial amongst the Dragon Ball fanbase, arguing whether or not Gohan acted out of character during the Cell Games. But it has been pretty widely accepted by fans that this was a logical place for Gohan's character to be. How could he like fighting like Goku when all of his fights since childhood took place during death matches against aliens, meanwhile Goku's fights during his childhood took place during fun adventures or controlled environments? And yeah, I was on board with this line of thinking, that is until I reread the manga, making me the 13th Dragon Ball fan to actually read this thing and really paid attention to how Akira Toriyama wrote Gohan and his character arc up until the Cell Games. And it turns out that Akira Toriyama had not given a chapter, a few pages, a panel, a single speech bubble foreshadowing or alluding to Gohan's pacifistic nature. In fact, Gohan being in such death matches in such a young age gave his character arc the exact opposite effect. Let me explain. Gohan was introduced as a shy, sheltered child who had an insane amount of potential, first displayed when he shattered Raditz's space pod, armor, and ribcage. After the death of Goku, Gohan gets kidnapped again, but this time not by his biological uncle, but by someone who would become something like a father to him. During this training in the wilderness, Gohan slowly begins to become more self-reliant and begins to mirror his father as the months go on. I mean, just look at the way he cooks that dinosaur and tell me that isn't something Kid Goku would do. Hell, Toriyama even draws him as a mini Son Wukong, aka Son Goku, on a chapter cover. But even so, when the Saiyans arrive, a mini Goku he is not, as he's too scared to attack Nappa when he had the chance. But when he sees that his inability to act and use his strength when necessary can lead to the deaths of innocents, this is where Gohan finds his resolve on the battlefield. Even without a rage boost, he manages to land a solid kick to Nappa's jaw, was eager to join Piccolo and Krillin's plan to rush Nappa, before that plan went wrong, and even suggested that Piccolo leave the battlefield while he would somehow hold it down until Goku got back, because if Piccolo died, the Dragon Balls would too. And when Piccolo did in fact die, Gohan tried his best to avenge him immediately. Later on in the saga, when Goku was getting crushed by Uzaru Vegeta, it's Gohan who demands that he and Krillin go back to support him. He then goes on to fight Vegeta one-on-one and is integral to his defeat by deflecting the Spirit Bomb back to him and crushing him while in his Uzaru form. See, Gohan's character had developed in such a way that being engaged with such brutal battles at such a young age gave him a very strong sense of duty to do what's right and protect his friends. It wasn't a game to him, so for Gohan to be reduced to tears, begging a being for mercy that he thought killed Piccolo at one point and threatened to blow up the earth for no real reason, Gohan begging Cell for mercy like that without doing everything he could to stop him initially is a completely out of character moment for him. This is a character who faced down Nappa as a 5-year-old child, and Nappa was an absolute beast. Remember that scene in the anime when he was just tearing those fighter jets to pieces? Man, it sure is a good thing that there are no fighter jet destroying aliens in this video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a free-to-play vehicle combat action game available on PC, Xbox and PlayStation. It features over 2,000 tanks, planes, ships and helicopters for you to engage in dynamic combined arms PvP battles. You can customize your vehicle with 3D body pillows and thousands of 2D anime skins made by War Thunder's creative community, or create your own. Every vehicle is incredibly detailed and rendered in 4K with incredible graphics. If you want to change from the authentic sounds of your vehicle, you can get anime-styled voice packs to listen to, paired with War Thunder's amazing soundtrack. As a history nerd, I'm genuinely impressed by the collection of vehicles on offer, spanning over 100 years of technological development. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox, using my link in the pinned comment or video description. This will give you access to the Body Pillow Pack, which contains multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, exclusive body pillows and more. This is available for a limited time only. If you haven't played for at least 6 months, you can also claim the Body Pillow Pack. If you're an active player, my link will give you access to the exclusive Dakimakuras on all platforms. Thank you War Thunder for sponsoring this video. It's that very same trait that made him tell Chi-Chi to shut the hell up so he could go with Bulma and Krillin to Namek in order to revive their fallen comrades. Even Goku came to admire his fortitude in what may be the first instance of Goku seriously considering that Gohan could succeed him and do better than him as Earth's protector. So as for Gohan being a pacifist that hates fighting, yeah, I'm just not buying it. It completely contradicts everything in the manga. Hey, what are you looking at? You're weird. And as for Gohan being a slacker who doesn't like to train, he gladly image trained with Krillin for fun while journeying to Namek, and when they landed on Namek, he gladly took out some Frieza soldiers while looking proud of himself with a smile on his face. May I add that these soldiers landed in the water and so probably drowned, and Gohan doesn't care at all. Before the Cell games, Gohan is consistently portrayed as being down to fight, even to the death, and provide backup to his friends when necessary. He was the first to try to attack Final Form Frieza, and when he came back to Earth as a cyborg, Gohan put on his Saiyan armor and flew to confront him, and I highly doubt he was going to propose a peaceful negotiation. He trained with Goku during the 3-year time skip to prepare for the android threat, and in an instance of genius writing from Toriyama, he shows both Gohan's eagerness to fight and foreshadows Goku's heart virus as he tells Gohan to slow down and save his strength. Then during the fight with androids 19 and 20, Gohan backs up Piccolo without any hesitation. Now, I'm not saying that Gohan is a fighting maniac like Goku, but the few times we saw him fight with minimal stakes, he enjoyed it. I'd say that while Goku primarily fights due to enjoying it and secondarily out of a sense of justice or duty, Gohan is the opposite. He fights mostly to protect others and kinda still enjoys the thrill of battle somewhat. But even still, you may be thinking, well, maybe Gohan had his pacifist revelation during his time during the hyperbolic time chamber, as that gave him a lot of time to reflect. And yeah, that would have made sense if Toriyama had drawn any of that. Gohan just trains for a straight year. Toriyama had the perfect opportunity to explore that part of Gohan's psyche, and he just didn't. And that's because I am so certain that he only came up with this Gohan is a pacifist who's nothing like Goku plot point maybe even just a week, 2 weeks before he actually drew it. And the reason why I'm so confident is only 7 chapters prior, Toriyama introduced us to another version of Gohan, a version of Gohan that would become a fan favorite. He introduced us to future Gohan. Now, unlike the superior anime adaptation, the manga version of History of Trunks is rather brief. However, we still gain some insight into the personality of future Gohan. Firstly, on a visual basis, we do see a Gohan, albeit an unprepared one, that has indeed succeeded his father in fighting to protect the Earth, as he wears a gi like Goku's with pride. He's seen training future Trunks with a smile on his face. You'd think that a Gohan in an apocalyptic future would absolutely despise anything to do with combat. See, with this Gohan, what Toriyama could have done if he always planned for him to be this combat-hating pacifist was give him some lines lamenting what had become of his life, that he always wanted to truly become a scholar and not have to fight. And when he confronted the androids, he could have had some lines trying to convince them to listen to reason and that their violence is pointless. Instead, Gohan lands ready to fight and kill the threat, as he's consistently been portrayed throughout the manga. But tragically, he loses his life instead. Okay, so by now you may be thinking, well, why would Akira Toriyama do this to Gohan's character in the first place? And to understand that, I think we have to understand Toriyama's mindset during this era of Dragon Ball. Around the end of the Namek Saga, Toriyama took part in an interview wherein he said, "I fret about the next story developments. After all, if I don't power things up even more, you all might not accept it." As you probably already know, Toriyama didn't start his career as a mangaka redefining the very genre of shonen action. Instead, he began as a gag mangaka. By the way, I just wanted to say that if you end up looking into Toriyama's back catalog, do not read Lady Red. Worst mistake of my life. This guy's sense of humor is absolutely fucked. Pun not intended. He then got his big break with a gag comedy manga, Dr. Slump. After that concluded, he then went on to write Dragon Ball, a series influenced by his love of martial arts films and Journey to the West. However, initially Dragon Ball wasn't all too popular. It's only until Toriyama had the idea of combining the martial arts genre with some kind of a competition, as that was really popular when he drew Dr. Slump. And so, Toriyama would go on to introduce the readers to a series of tournaments that would come to define the franchise and cause Dragon Ball to surge in popularity as he introduced readers to the And with this surge of popularity, the action of Dragon Ball would only increase from there. Goku would go on to fight assassins, entire armies. The 22nd Budokai would be less gag focused as Goku faced off against the martial arts prodigy Tien, and then an event would happen that some people would argue is where Dragon Ball Z truly began. Krillin died at the hands of Tambourine, and Evil Incarnate would be introduced. The once light-hearted world of Dragon Ball would be darkened by a Demon King, and Toriyama absolutely loved it. After all his years as a gag mangaka, this was a breath of fresh air to him, to write a truly reprehensible demon as the villain, and Goku engaged with him in a battle so destructive that people thought that the series would be coming to an end. But it wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. Toriyama only wanted the battles to grow more intense from there, and so he demanded that Goku be allowed to grow up, as his stubby child limbs were restricting the dynamism of the combat he had imagined in his mind. Now you need to keep in mind just how unprecedented this was. To change the look of a main character is risky business, especially in the cutthroat world of shonen manga, but Toriyama was adamant and the risk paid off. Dragon Ball would soar in the Shonen Jump rankings with the 23rd Budokai, wherein Goku would defeat Piccolo and become the world's strongest. And so logically, to escalate the action, it was time to go beyond Earth, as it was revealed in one of manga's greatest retcons that Goku is actually an alien, and after an epic battle with the Saiyans, which had the fate of the entire planet hang in the balance, it was obviously time to go out into space and fight Frieza in a battle so intense that the planet itself exploded as Goku fulfilled the Saiyan prophecy as he battled with the planet-destroying Galactic Emperor. Well, after defeating the strongest in space, it was time for the Z Fighters to conquer time itself, with killer androids, a Super Saiyan from the future, a bio android from the future, editors constantly interfering with the story, battles which had to get bigger and bigger and bigger, Super Saiyan, Ascended Saiyans, Cell had so many spots, there were so many timelines, how many battles, so many editors, and burnout. By the time the Android saga rolled around, Akira Toriyama had burnt himself out on constantly escalating action, and when you read the manga, you can see this reflected on the page. You see, from the very first Budokai, when Toriyama was upping the action in Dragon Ball, he had this talent of portraying depth and dynamic angles in his fight scenes. It's like he created 3D spaces out of a 2D medium. And when he introduced the ability of flight to his characters, this 3D aspect of Dragon Ball's action exploded. The paneling and choreography were simply amazing. Toriyama would make use of beam trails and auras in order to guide the reader's eye around the action. In terms of action, the manga really did peak at the Namek saga. I mean, just look at this panel of Vegeta here with the exploding debris of the island just flying past him. You can't find action like that in the Android saga. The fights are still good, but lack that explosive dynamic edge. The spectacle that had come to define Dragon Ball's action was absent. Take Piccolo vs 17 for example. Many people point to the anime version of the fight as one of the most underrated fights in this series, as the two combatants split the earth, smash each other's guts out, and cause an entire volcano to erupt. Meanwhile, the manga version of the fight is very low-key. It looks more like a scuffle rather than a clash between two entities that could destroy the entire planet. Another example is Goku vs Cell, lauded as one of the greatest fights in all of Z hands down. And how could it not be? The speed, the skill, the power of Cell and Goku is on display in superb, fluid animation. However, the manga version of the fight is quite underwhelming in comparison. Don't get me wrong, Toriyama's art is still great, but to me, it's a shadow of what it once was. At one point, the highlight of the Dragon Ball Z anime fights were when the anime would adapt Toriyama's choreography. However, this was no longer the case, and this trend continued with the Buu saga, as what's argued to be the best fight in the saga, Super Saiyan 2 Goku vs Kid Buu, was completely filler. To me, it's clear that Akira Toriyama wanted to go home, back to his comfy realm of lighthearted action, funny gags, and low stakes. Remember that quote I mentioned earlier from Toriyama, the one where he talked about fretting over having to escalate Dragon Ball's action even higher past the Namek saga? Well, that wasn't the whole quote, as Toriyama went on to say that he wanted to find new ways to draw Goku looking cool, but he also wanted to find ways to keep making use of Gohan. And Toriyama did indeed find the way to make use of Gohan. Think about it, if he could convince the audience that Gohan was always this pacifist character, if he could then take Gohan and make him the protagonist of Dragon Ball, that means he could then steer Dragon Ball away from being so action focused and become something a bit less serious. But first, he'd have to give this action focused era of Dragon Ball its proper send-off. I think a major reason why so many fans look past Gohan's out-of-character writing during the Cell games is because it's attached to one of the most emotional and cathartic scenes in all the franchise. I mean, you have Gohan's awakening, Goku's sacrifice, Gohan facing down Cell with just one arm. It's also damn iconic. Also, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's characterization is more in line with how Gohan had been portrayed before the Cell games, but his desire to use his power for justice had been corrupted by his rage-boosted Super Saiyan state, which led him to take his time torturing Cell and enjoying it. This parallels with Super Saiyan Goku letting Frieza power up on Namek, primarily so he could get a good fight, but secondarily to crush Frieza's pride. And just as in a way Dragon Ball Z began with the death of Krillin, it looks like it was supposed to end with the death of Cell, as he represents everything Dragon Ball became during this action-focused era, containing the DNA of every single major antagonist and Goku himself, with Cell even threatening to destroy the entire solar system. Toriyama just taking things to the absolute extreme, having Cell one-up Vegeta and Frieza, who boasted about their planet-destroying capabilities. I mean, what the hell does blowing up the solar system even mean? What would that even look like? But as Gohan's clash with Cell comes to an end, with a little help from Vegeta, the bio-android is vanquished and peace is restored to the Earth. And with Goku dead, Vegeta retiring from combat, Trunks returning to his future, and Gohan now being able to live a peaceful life without fighting, all members of the once battle-proud Saiyan warrior race will battle no longer, leaving Toriyama free to reinvent Dragon Ball in what I can only describe as a Dragon Ball reboot. The beginning of the Buu saga is always so weird to read, but in an interesting way. The vibe and tone are so different. Unlike the Android saga, which started with the return of the previous saga's main antagonist, and the Saiyan saga, which led straight into the Namek saga, this one feels so divorced from the Cell saga. It has the longest time skip by far, characters are given all new designs, new characters that aren't just there to be villains or introduce the new villain are introduced, Gohan's going to school, the vibe is so different, it really does feel like a Dragon Ball reboot. Especially with the anime's new opening with a whole new song, which just screams, yes, Gohan is the protagonist of Dragon Ball now. And we can't talk about this era of Dragon Ball without talking about the Great Saiyaman, Gohan's dorky superhero alter ego that Toriyama just loved to draw. And on that note, Toriyama even has Gohan break the fourth wall multiple times, one time when he announced that Krillin is retiring. Like, this is Krillin, Goku's first martial arts rival and Gohan's brother in arms during the Namek saga. This Krillin retiring just emphasizing just how much Dragon Ball is moving away from its action martial arts vibe and going to something more low-key. Toriyama was back in his element. He wasn't thinking about any world-ending threats appearing, he was too busy having a great time writing gags with Gohan playing baseball, doing his goofy Saiyaman poses, and accidentally revealing his identity to Videl. Toriyama gladly would have written Dragon Ball like this, perhaps for the entire saga, if he could have gotten away with it. As it turns out that fans came to Dragon Ball for a martial arts shonen battle manga, and ultimately Toriyama had to oblige. Perhaps the tonal whiplash was too much, as Gohan went from backhanding Cell Juniors into oblivion to doing goofy superhero poses in the space of about a dozen chapters. Meanwhile, it took hundreds for Dragon Ball to go from a fun, goofy adventure manga to death matches on exploding planets. And it's here where we get that infamous Toriyama quote, wherein he said, "I intended to put Gohan into the leading role. It didn't work out. I felt that compared to Goku, he was ultimately not suited for the part." And unfortunately for Gohan fans, this is true. This new Gohan Toriyama had created was made for the laid-back Dragon Ball, the Great Saiyaman manga if you would. So if Dragon Ball was to go back to more how it was before, Gohan no longer had a place as its protagonist. How could he be the lead of a battle manga when he doesn't like to battle? Even when looking back on the Buu saga, Toriyama himself describes it as having two halves. The first half with Gohan as the protagonist and the second half with Majin Buu as the antagonist. And when you read the manga, when Goku comes back from Otherworld and the Kaioshin appears with Kibito, Gohan does indeed begin to fade into the background. But just as it looks like Gohan is about to reinsert himself back into the spotlight, his main character energy is quite literally sucked out of him. I remember when I first watched this scene on Toonami, man, I was so excited. I was like, okay, that Great Saiyaman stuff was kinda fun, but this is the Gohan I'm trying to see here. I'm trying to see Super Saiyan 2 come back and see Gohan catch a couple bodies, you know what I'm saying? But then the most frustrating scene in the entire series happens, just as we think Gohan is gonna become him again. Like, I know it had to happen for Kaioshin's plan to work, but Toriyama could have at least let Gohan one-shot Spopovich after what he did to Videl. Like my boy Kid Gohan back in the Namek saga, he wouldn't have stood there while Videl got her head stomped on. On that note, it's kind of funny how one chapter Videl was resolved to go with Gohan to Babidi's spaceship, but the next chapter she says nah and leaves. Videl was a major character during the Great Saiyaman saga, and now she's pretty much gone from the story. But you know what's more tragic than Gohan just watching as his would-be wife gets her teeth knocked out? The fact that that was the last time Gohan ever used Super Saiyan 2 in the manga. The transformation that he introduced to the series and that he's best known for, that was the last time. I know that there's some debate as to whether or not he used it against Dabura in the anime, but in the manga it's painfully obvious. He was in Super Saiyan 1 against Dabura. Toriyama always drew lightning for Super Saiyan 2 characters, and it even became a plot point that Gohan was so weak compared to his child self. Goku even tells Gohan to get angry as he did when he fought Cell, which translates to, Gohan, please transform into a Super Saiyan 2, please. But Gohan just can't do it, and then Gohan's unique ability to transcend the Super Saiyan wall completely gets given to Goku and Vegeta, the Saiyans that will ultimately be relevant in defeating Majin Buu. Oh yeah, on the note of Majin Buu, he gets released and proceeds to one-shot Gohan, who stood no chance. From protagonist to perished. Rest in peace, my boy Gohan. Toriyama did you dirty. Okay, Gohan's not really dead yet. But let's focus on the titular antagonist, Majin Buu, as it's very clear from his design to his power set that Akira Toriyama decided to step sideways when it came to developing his antagonist. Instead of going for a bigger, badder enemy in the more traditional sense like a Cell 2.0, it looks like in stepping back to what he's more comfortable with, Toriyama stepped into the realm of parody. Some people call the Majin Buu saga a parody of Dragon Ball due to the insanity of it all. Majin Buu looks like the furthest thing you'd imagine when it comes to a Dragon Ball villain thus far. Goku's insane looking Super Saiyan 3 transformation comes out of nowhere. Dancing becomes the key to ultimate power rather than an emotional transformation, and there's Vegeta's famous line of the Super Saiyan bargain sale. Personally, I wouldn't go that far, but there's definitely an element of Toriyama making fun of how his manga had evolved over the decade, especially as his mentality for drawing it was, this is the end, so I'm going to draw whatever I want. Unfortunately for Gohan, this new mindset would take the form of the most elaborate cruel joke played at his expense, as Toriyama would go out of his way to prove that Gohan was not protagonist material for Dragon Ball once and for all, as Gohan was still very popular at this time, and many fans were still waiting for Gohan to make his comeback. Meanwhile, Toei had produced 2 movies and a new opening, kinda pushing this idea of Gohan being the new protagonist of Dragon Ball. But what many fans see as a bright spot for Gohan's character, a second chance at redemption, a second chance at glory, was anything but. This is the mystic downfall of Ultimate Gohan. It all starts with good news for Gohan. Turns out he's not dead and has been taken to the world of the Kais to receive training in order to defeat Majin Buu. But to do so, he must pull out the Z-Sword. Man, I remember when I was a kid and then I heard of the Z-Sword and I thought, oh, that's what the Z in Dragon Ball Z stands for. Yo, when Gohan gets his hands on the Z-Sword, he's gonna be so back. He's gonna be so back. Now, this is some straight out of King Arthur shit, which seems at odds with the heavy sci-fi direction Dragon Ball had been going with for some time. But hey, this saga was more into gods and magic, with the antagonist even being named after a bloody Cinderella spell, so whatever. Plus, around this time, Toriyama had been drawing a lot of JRPGs like Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger, so maybe that influenced him, or this is all just a callback to Gohan using a sword as a child. But whatever, tangent aside, Gohan manages to pull out the sword, Goku comes to visit, and then the sword breaks, and we are introduced to the old Kai, and technically we're introduced to our very first mention of Beerus, and one of the funniest gags in the Buu saga, with Goku almost killing him as a test. Anyway, it turns out that old Kai has the ability to bring out one's potential beyond its limits, kind of like a better version of the ability Guru had back on Namek. The only downside is that they have to sit through a tedious ritual complete with aforementioned dance, and this is one of those instances where you can really see Toriyama begin to lean into the parody aspect of the Buu saga, as he kinda makes fun of just how stupid power-ups had gotten in his series. Case in point, let's take Goku getting over 30 times stronger in about 20 minutes because he got beaten up. Like, the fight scenes peaked in the Namek saga, but so did the power creep. He even has old Kai fall asleep and read manga while bringing out Gohan's potential, kinda showing just how bored Toriyama had gotten with Gohan, since his plan for Gohan to be the protagonist of his Stealth Dragon Ball reboot didn't quite pan out. But on the other hand, Toriyama was having a great time with a whole new character, a character that the contrast with Gohan, who had to sit still to become the ultimate warrior, this warrior requires a dance in order to come into existence. Enter Gotenks. Toriyama has gone on record multiple times saying that Super Buu vs Gotenks is one of the favorite fights he drew in the manga, and you can really see him strike a fine balance between his gag manga roots and drawing more serious action. That's why it's one of my favorite fights in the whole series. There's the Super Ghost Kamikaze attack, which is a gag and an effective technique all at once. This is how we got such imaginative moves like the Super Ghost Kamikaze, the Galactic Donuts, the volleyball attack. Two of these take up Toriyama's top 3 techniques that he ever made for the series. And that over-the-top, creative, dynamic spark Toriyama had for battles in the Saiyan and Namek saga even makes a reappearance during the fight, as Gotenks and Buu scream through dimensions and fight on Earth. Gotenks even comes admirably close to defeating Super Buu, and maybe would've if his fusion didn't run out, but alas, it wasn't meant to be. Meanwhile, in the world of the Kais, okay, at this point, Toriyama is just using old Kai as a mouthpiece, as he's been done with the power-up ritual for a while, but didn't tell Gohan in order to make things more dramatic. Gohan then unleashes his potential, but doesn't look all too different. Now, this is part of Ultimate Gohan's appeal, but a cynical part of me kinda believes that Toriyama just couldn't be bothered to come up with a new transformation for him. Still a better design than Beast though. But you know what? For just a minute, let's pretend that this whole Ultimate Gohan gag really was supposed to be a major turning point for his character for the better.
Thank you for waking me up. Up till now, how many times I've tried to tell you please take care of yourself. Then with tear-stained eyes, I sadly said goodbye as I waved and wished you farewell. Then I think of I must wait. I look inside myself and feel something new. I wanna stop and grow up a bit. It's all because I'm feeling sad and then I cry. I don't know why. The courage that I need, the power to succeed, gives me the strength to fly. It's all because of when I see my friends all mine. Every time they're always behind me, pushing me on, lighting the fire in me.
Okay, wait, stop the AMV. Did what Gohan just did look familiar to you? Landing just in the nick of time in order to save his friends? Well, it should, because Gohan just performed what I've dubbed the Goku landing. Just like Goku arriving just in time to save his friends against King Piccolo, Nappa, Frieza, the Ginyu Force, Gohan has done that exact same thing. He's mirrored Goku exactly while dressing just like him. Toriyama just gave Gohan one of his favorite Goku tropes, but unlike Goku, who always caught a dub after performing a Goku landing, Gohan wouldn't enjoy the same fortune. You can dress Gohan like Goku. You can give Gohan power surpassing Goku. You can give Gohan an antagonist weaker than he is, but it won't work because Gohan is not Goku and Toriyama wants you to know that. The beatdown that Gohan suffers against Bootanks is just mean. But I will kind of defend Toriyama here, as a lot of people say that that Gohan got cocky again, he was playing with his food, whatever, but a lot of that is just anime filler, because in the original manga, Gohan vs Super Buu lasts for 5 pages. Gohan's shining moment of glory in the Buu saga lasts for 5 pages. Meanwhile, Gotenks got 6 chapters in his fight with Super Buu. And arguably he got closer to defeating Buu than Gohan did, and didn't have to suffer the brutal indignity that Gohan is about to endure. You can really tell which character the author preferred drawing. Oh yeah, and in case you are wondering, Gohan does call Buu a redacted in the manga. Make of that what you will. And in a way, the anime is even meaner with this whole Bootanks beating up Gohan thing, as the anime has Buu and Gohan reenact Goku and Vegeta's poses from the Saiyan saga. Like, Gohan is not him, he's not gonna win, he's not that guy. Stop giving false hope. Gohan just gets the shit beaten out of him during a desperate struggle to survive, and after one of the most suspect scenes in the manga, he even gets beaten up off panel. Toriyama can't even be bothered to draw some of the beatdown. And in the end, Gohan is left looking like this. Now, I'm just saying it looks similar to this. Could be a coincidence, I'm just calling it how I see it, cause it is not looking good for him. To be fair to Gohan, Vegeta also got the shit beaten out of him multiple times by Buu during this saga, but one of them led to his greatest character moment, while the other was necessary in order for Goku to charge the Spirit Bomb. Meanwhile here, Gohan just gets the shit beaten out of him just to emphasize that he is not that guy, he is not Goku, he's not the protagonist, he is cooked. Then Tien had to step in to assist. I mean, props to Tien, but this was not Gohan's equivalent of Goku having to be saved by Yajirobe during the Saiyan saga, as the true main protagonist returns. Gohan then drops the Potara, because of course he does, and then gets absorbed, and that is the ultimate fate of Ultimate Gohan. Then a few chapters later, Kid Buu blows up the planet with Gohan on it, and so Gohan dies in the most anticlimactic whatever way possible. From protagonist to perished, Toriyama really did Gohan dirty. You'd think the death of Gohan, a character we've been following from infancy to young adulthood, would have a bit more of an impact in the manga, but at this point Toriyama was done with his character, and he even made fun of how pointless death was in Dragon Ball, with another pretty funny gag, I'll admit. So yeah, that was pretty much the end of Gohan's relevancy in the Buu saga, although he did donate to the Spirit Bomb, essentially playing cheerleader while the real protagonist finished off Buu. So as Gohan may have been forgotten as Dragon Ball's protagonist, you should definitely remember to check out War Thunder using the link in my description or pinned comment to gain access to the exclusive body pillow pack, which contains multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, exclusive body pillows, and more. So as we all know, despite being the strongest unfused being in the manga, it didn't really help Gohan when Dragon Ball was resurrected in 2013. And so in part 2, we're gonna get into how his ultimate form disappeared, his downfall in Resurrection F, the weird kind of bright spot he got in a Tournament of Power, and how Toriyama absolutely ruined that with Superhero, wherein I will finally give my full Beast Gohan critique and point out Toriyama's clear biases when it comes to writing for characters. So if that video is not up here already, click this video over here about Goku's character assassination during the Super era of the franchise. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and stay locked into the cage. Peace out.